Yo, hey everybody, it's Drewberry, and we're doing another custom card review. Since last time, you guys have submitted so many creative ideas, it's incredible. It was super fun sorting through all these cards. Now, I picked out 5 that stood out to me, and it's not based on power, it's maybe just creativity, art, it's a mix of all kinds of things. And then I incorporated one of my own just for a little bit of fun. But moving forward, I kind of want to mix it up and put a spin on it with a weekly challenge. So I'm going to be doing these videos every Sunday, and this week's challenge is going to be custom cards with the word draw in its text, not the name in the card text. So essentially it has some way of interacting with the draw mechanic. There's almost no cards in Marvel Snap that include draw. There's like Adam Warlock, and then a variety of cards that like Cable and Mantis that draw from your opponent's deck. So how you can do it is you can join the Berryverse Discord. The link is in the description below. And then you can create a custom card. I also have the link in the description below, but it's just snaptracker.me/custom. And then you can post it in the custom cards channel. That's it. That's all you got to do. And then I'm going to review all the ones in the next week with the keyword draw. And I'll pick 5 and I'll actually rank those this time. But right now we're just going to get into some of the creative cards from the last week. Let's get into it. All right, I'm kicking it off with Galactic Burrito's Atlas. Man, this is creative. And actually, Galactic Burrito, he's been posting a bunch in the Berryverse Discord and so many creative ideas. Honestly, I had about 4 set up and I had 5 of his left over, and I only wanted to pick 1 per person. So Atlas is a 6 cost, 16 power, so lots of power, right? But this card takes up 4 spaces. Simple, yet so incredibly unique, because I don't think there's a card in Marvel Snap right now that directly interacts with the spaces at location. Keep in mind, there's 4 spaces at a location on your side of the board, and then 4 on your opponent's side of the board. So there's 12 total for you on your side, 12 for your opponent, 24 total spaces. And Atlas is going to require all 4. So this means if there's a card there by accident, let's say it's a squirrel from Central Park, that location, or your opponent gave you a rock or something, then you cannot play Atlas at that location. So incredibly limiting, right? Not to mention, if he's the only card there, you're going to have to hope that 16 power is going to win you that location, which is not guaranteed. There's a lot of ways to get past 16 power. And to the cherry on top is there's a card called Shang-Chi, which destroys all cards on your opponent's side of the board that have 9 or more power. So he is a easy target for that. But one of the ways that I think this card works really well in is a Destroyer deck. So Destroyer is a 6/16 card that destroys all other cards on your side of the board. Now, of course, you can't play 2 6-cost cards normally, but there's some ramp options like Psylocke or Electro that allow you to get a little bit more energy, so that hopefully you can play Destroyer on turn 5 and then Atlas on turn 6 and just hope that those 2 are enough. Then maybe you're in an okay spot. But when I was looking at this card, the only thing I could help but feel is that it was only a 2-star card because of so many counters. But honestly, maybe if this just had more power, like I think this could be 20 power, right? To give him that even extra buff, like lean heavily into that big card, right? Maybe even more than Infinite, I don't know. But then that might make more sense. It might be more viable in that scenario. Some of the other synergy cards that I have here are like Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, and Killmonger. Killmonger to destroy rocks and squirrels or anything that ends up at that location, right? Ninjas even. And then Hobgoblin and Green Goblin are fair plays at that location because they're not taking up a space, right? So you can get negative power and make a bigger swing when you play Atlas down. That was the idea there. All right, next up is Fran with Fantasticar. Look at this. So good. I did not do the frame break here. That was all Fran, so shout out to you. That was a nice touch. Definitely made it stand out. But Fantasticar is a really cool card because a lot of the times what I've seen a lot of players mention is why don't like X-Men characters interact with each other? Fantastic Four characters interact with each other. Why don't they get buffs? Why don't they have tags, right? And it's, you know, I don't know how I feel overall about that. There's ups, there's pros and cons. But when you look at this card, it kind of makes these things make sense. So Fantasticar is a 4-cost, 4 power, ongoing, give Fantastic 4 members +1 power for each member on the board. So let's use the Thing as an example, right? The Thing is a 4-cost, 6 power. If you have him out there and there's 3 other Fantastic 4 members, then he's going to be a 4/9. And if there's 3 other members out there, then they're all also getting +3. So that's like a 12 power swing with 4 power on Fantasticar. That's a lot of power. It might be a little bit bonkers, but I think you pretty much make a Fantastic Four deck just from this card. And they don't really synergize with each other. Like Invisible Woman's a bit of a weird one. You don't really want to hide these cards, but maybe you do. Maybe it's a good swing for the end of the game. But then Human Torch is here, and you like, how do you buff him? What are you doing with him? So when I was thinking of synergy cards, I basically thought we need something late game. Because look at this. You have your turn 1 Human Torch, Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic. Then you're going to have to play Fantasticar or the Thing on 4 and 5 respectively. So your turns are pretty much locked in. If this is your curve, this is your deck, it's what you're trying to do. So then I thought, okay, we need a 6-drop. So Onslaught to double the ongoing effect. That's absolutely nuts. That'd be so much power, and it even works with Mr. Fantastic. And then I thought Heimdall, because why not? Why not shift everything over, load 2 locations, and then you even buff up Human Torch. That might be a decent option. And you only ever see Heimdall in move decks. I think it'd be pretty shocking to see it in something else. You wouldn't see that coming as the opponent. And then Arnim Zola, if you can hit Arnim Zola, he's going to destroy a card and place it at 2 other locations, copies of it. So you destroy the Fantastic card and then you get 2 of them elsewhere. That's a lot of extra power for your Fantastic Four members. So super creative idea. Art and theme, everything's on point. This is like 10 out of 10 easily, but I'm giving it 4 because maybe it gets countered because you can't really draw all the cards, all the Fantastic Four members. Enchantress exists, right? Rogue exists, ways to eliminate the ongoing effect. But super creative, dude. Incredible job with this one. We're moving over to Drewberries. Who's that guy? Yeah, I made a card. I like to make 1 each for these just to add a little spin. And this time I made the Goblin Queen. Yeah, so similar to the other goblins, on reveal, your opponent gains control of this. She's a 1-cost 0 power, so not negative. It's not going to hurt them that bad, but it's 0, and it's taking up a space at a location, right? And at the end of each turn, move to a random location. So I thought this was super interesting because this would really disrupt your opponent. Let's say they just stacked a location with 3 cards, right? My Goblin Queen did not get there. She wasn't the 4th slot. I played her elsewhere where I knew that she wouldn't get rejected and stay at my location, right? Because if my opponent has 4 cards, she's just not going to move. And then she's going to be bouncing around my spaces, and I don't want that. So I played her at a nice safe spot. My opponent stacked 3 cards. He planned on playing like Onslaught there to stack all of his ongoing abilities, right? But then Goblin Queen's going to move around and go over there, and then maybe he can't play things on curve. It's going to be so disruptive and frustrating, and they're probably just going to retreat, right? So I thought this was really hilarious. Doesn't have that negative impact. Gets countered by Killmonger, can be destroyed for your opponents to clear it. Even Cosmo. It's not that big of a swing. It's just super disruptive and annoying, and it plays well with the other goblins, which would be fun, right? You play a goblin deck and try and guess where your opponent doesn't have cards, put negative power there, put Goblin Queen there, fill it up with a bunch of stuff. So I just thought this was a fun card. I actually think it gets 4 stars too because it could be really disruptive, and there's already a give stuff deck out there with like giving rocks with debris, the goblins, etc. So I think it'd be really good. In terms of some synergy, we have debris, of course. I already mentioned that. We have Professor X. If you lock down a location, she's only got 2 places to bounce, and that's just really going to constrain your opponent even more. And then also Craven. So Craven gets buffs. He gets +2 power whenever a card moves to his location. But that doesn't have to be just your cards, right? That could be your opponent's cards moving around. So she could just continuously buff up Craven. If you played her on 1, Craven on 2, you're probably going to get at least 2, maybe 3 buffs from Goblin Queen moving around to Craven's position. So I thought that was a nice little added synergy. But that's my card, Goblin Queen. Let me know what you guys think about that one. And let's move on to the next one. Check this one out. Arugula, shout out to you, man. Thank you for sharing this. Silver Samurai. On reveal, add Muramasa to a different location. If Silver Samurai is at this location, +4 power. Isn't this interesting? What I really liked is Arugula kind of mentioned it's like a little mini quest, right? So you have your move deck, you're trying to move things around, but you're not just trying to move it for power benefit, you're trying to stack them together. You're trying to put the puzzle pieces together. So if you have Silver Samurai and Muramasa at the same location, that's a net total of 10 power for 4 cost, which is pretty awesome. And there's on reveal synergy here. So let's say you play Wong and then you play Silver Samurai, you get 2 Muramasas, and then you somehow get Silver Samurai over there. That's another 6 power, 16 power. That can get actually pretty out of hand and get a lot of power. It's very reminiscent of Thor, how Thor puts Mjolnir into your deck, and then you have to find Mjolnir, play it to give Thor the buff. Kind of similar to that, except it's a bit of a play with move decks and on reveal synergy as well. You get these cards regardless. They come out right away. You just have to find a way to get them at the same location. I think that's a really interesting quest, and I appreciate it. But the problem is it's not a lot of power. And you then have to focus how to figure it out. Like I was saying, it could be net gain 10 power, but sometimes that's not enough. I think because there's a condition, there's this quest built in, it needs to be a little bit more power. I don't know how much, maybe just giving Silver Samurai another 2 power makes it good enough on its own right. And then if you complete the quest, it's even better. I'm not too sure what I would do to buff this, but I do feel it needs a little bit of a push. Let me know if you guys have a plan for this one. But some synergy cards are Cloak, Doctor Strange, Wong. Wong for the on reveals, doubling up. Doctor Strange because Silver Samurai is the one that's higher power. So if you play Doctor Strange at Minamasa's location, it's going to pull the Samurai over. So that seems pretty nice and easy. And then the best one by far is Cloak. You play Cloak at a location where you haven't played a card. You can easily put 3 things there, and that could be these 2 cards, Silver Samurai and Miramasa. Boom. You got a lot of power. So very creative idea. I like little mini quests built into the cards without adding too much text. This is a very simple quest, but there's not a lot to read here, which makes it easy for the player to understand what they have to do with this card. All right, next up, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm probably off, but Clea. Pickzzzzz put this in the Berryverse Discord, and it is pretty cool. First of all, I love that he put his own custom text. That was awesome. Really stood out to me. But the ability is super neat as well. I like ramp cards. I really like Psylocke, that kind of thing. Manipulation of energy levels. So this is a 3 cost, 2 power. On reveal next turn, you get +1 energy for each unspent energy this turn. So it's a lot of investment into your future turn, right? So the idea is, let's say you played her on 3. Well, then you don't get any bonus energy next turn. But if you play her on 5, then you're going to get +2 energy on your big turn 6, which might be a massive dump of a lot of cards flood the field. Or maybe you want to play that big 6 drop with something else that maybe is 2 energy. I think a few creative ways to make this even better is Wong. So you play Wong on 4, Clea on 5, and then you have +2 energy times 2, +4 energy on turn 6. That's 10 energy. You can play 2 5 costs, or maybe even like Onslaught, Patriot, hide that. Just some pretty crazy things. Another easy layup to this is Sunspot. Let's say you have Sunspot out there and you need him to clutch out the win, right? You play Clea on turn 5, and then you have 8 energy on turn 6, and you pass. That's just 8 power. It's almost like having an 8 power card that you play, right? That's just a huge 8 power to Sunspot. I guarantee your opponent will not see that coming. That's a really shocking play to have happen. And that's like a very unique setup with Clea. You can still do that on turn 6 and just pass turn 6 with Sunspot. But I think the extra little bit of incentive with Clea here, getting to 8 power, would make it worthwhile. So I have to give her 3 stars. Overall, I feel like this could be awkward and maybe not work out. But anytime there's energy manipulation giving you bonus energy, players are going to find busted combos. And I have a feeling that this one would somehow find its way to make something crazy happen on turn 6 and win all the games that only need like 2 or 3 cards and you guarantee a win because you played Clea. So I give her 3 because I'm not too sure what those combos are, but I'm sure they're there. And otherwise, she's decent value when played. Last but certainly not least, we have the Inquisitor's card, Gilgamesh. Now, this was one of the internals. He made a full set of internals, and I'm going to kind of slowly break them down because he submitted a whole bunch. But I really liked this one after reading them. So it's at the end of each turn, if there is an enemy card here with more power, gain +2 power. He's a 2/1. Great counter to cards that have high power but cost less early on, right? Or even just playing this and intimidating your opponent. Like if you play a high cost card here, you have to be considerate of Gilgamesh getting buffed out of control. And if he's always getting +2, there's a good chance he's always going to get more or even with that high power card. So it's a pretty natural way to just sit back and boom, get a lot of power because you're playing high cost things. I don't even have to commit resources there right this second. Gilgamesh is at least going to get me some power growing. I would probably play Angela every time over him, but they're very similar, and actually they work together. If you play Gilgamesh with Angela, you play Angela, then you play him, and she gets +2 power. But then if your opponent tries to compete with that crazy power output that you're starting to build up, they might have to play one big card. And that's going to be a bit difficult because you're going to have Gilgamesh feeding off of that power. Some other synergies I was thinking was Mojo, Dr. Octopus, and Magic. Magic to buy you that extra turn to get extra power. Doc Oct, because if you can pull all 4 cards, then you're probably guaranteed to pull something that has higher power, and that'll trigger Gilgamesh. And then Mojo as the protection from your opponent just flooding without high power things. If they just play a bunch of low things, well, at least you can play Mojo and be like, boom, you can't really flood me. You can't really play anything too powerful. I've got you pretty well locked down. Out of all the cards I've been reading about, I feel like this is the most natural one that would fit right into Marvel Snap right now. It's almost like one that they just missed printing. So thank you so much to everyone who submitted cards. I know I probably missed a few people that submitted a bunch of cards, and I apologize. I'm only trying to keep this to so many cards and pick one from each person. Keep submitting. I'm sure I'll eventually pick you. Don't forget this week's challenge. Jump in the Berryverse Discord, make your own card and submit it. I want to see the creations. I want to see the crazy ideas that we can come up with here. It's been so cool to see. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.